I welcome you for geography class. In this class, we are going to talk and discuss about the second part of the chapter number 2. In our previous part, whatever we had seen, I hope so you are revising it. Chapter number 2, Forest and Wildlife Resources. Topic. In this today topic of discussion, we are going to see about the forest, right, and the wildlife in India, and what are the conservation method is done by. Conservation of forest and wildlife in India. Second point, in that we are going to see the type and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. So quickly moving into the flashback, in our previous class we had seen the flora and fauna in India. After that we had seen the biodiversity. Next point, vanishing forest and the huge classification of the different species, just like rare species, endemic species and extinction species and so on. After that we had seen the number of the causes and the number of the factors which are responsible for the depletion of the flora and fauna in India. Dear cadet, in point of view of the periodic assessment and the monthly test, this chapter is important. Take it seriously and study properly. Don't think that this chapter is not going to be part for annual examination, so you will not study. Next, conservation in the background of rapid decline in wildlife, population and forestry has become essential. But why do we need to conserve our forest and wildlife? So as in our previous presentation we had seen about that the forest and wildlife, how they are helping and giving huge support in our day-to-day life. The reason why there is a great need to balance the ecological system with the help of conserving the forest and wildlife. So the conservation of forest and wildlife is very important. Conservation preserves the ecological diversity and our life support system, that's a water, air and soil. It also preserves the genetic diversity of plants as well as the animals for the better growth of the species and breeding. For example, in agriculture, we are still dependent on traditional crops and variety. Fisheries, too, are the heavily dependent on the maintenance of the aquatic biodiversity. So dear cadets, here the point is speaking to you. Why do we need to conserve our forest and wildlife? And the reason why the point is speaking here that they are maintaining, conserving and preserving the ecological diversity, our life support system, air, water and soil. This you have to mention in this. Next, moving further to see the next point. In the 1960s and 1970s, conservatives demanded a national forest protection program. That means soon we are going to have a discussion on the Protection Act which the government has implemented in our country. We are going to have a discussion on Project Tiger also. The Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972. Please make a note of it. For 1 marks question, it can be asked in examination. With the various provision for protecting the habitats, an all India list of protected species was also published. The reason why? To conserve and protect the wildlife. The thrust of this program was toward protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, giving legal protection to their habitats, and restricting the trade in the wildlife. Subsequently, the central and many state governments established national parks and wildlife sanctuary, about which you have already studied in chapter number 5, Natural Vegetation and Wildlife Resource in Standard 9th. Next, moving further to see the other points from this topic. The central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals, which were gravely threatened, including the tiger, the one-horned rhinos, the Kashmir stag or hunger, 3 types of crocodile, the freshwater crocodile, saltwater, and the gharial, the Asian tiglan and other. Mostly in the recent year, the Indian elephant, the black buck chinkara, the great Indian buster, the gudwan, and the snow leopard, etc., have been given the full and partial legal protection against hunting and trading throughout the India. So this particular slide is talking about the steps the government has taken to preserve and conserve, give the protection to the wildlife. What are the different species has been added in that, you can please go through it. Next, moving further, Project Tiger. So this Project Tiger is very important. In examination, the 3 marks question can be there. Describe the features of Project Tiger. So in that you have to mention about in which year it was implemented. At that time, what was the population of the tiger was there. After implementing this one, what is the rapid increase in that, and so on. The tiger is one of the key wildlife species in the front web. In 1973, the authorities realized that the tiger population had dwindled to 1,827 from the established 55,000 at the turn of the century. The major threat to the tiger populations are numerous, such as poaching for trade, habitat, depletion of base species, and growing population of human has also affected them very badly. So I request you, please go through it. And the trade of tiger skin and the use of their bones in the traditional medicine, especially in the Asian country, left the tiger population on the verge of extinction. Since India and Nepal provided habitat to about 2/3 of the surviving tiger population in the world. These two nations become the prime target of poaching and illegal trading. So, the Project Tigers were one of the initiatives taken by the government to preserve the species of tiger and conserve them. Next, this slide is also speaking the same. The Project Tiger, one of the well-publicized wildlife campaign in the world, was launched in 1973. Tiger conservation have been viewed not only as an effort to save an endangered species, but with the equal importance as a means of preserving biotype of the sizable magnitude. Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Sundarban National Park in West Bengal. Like that, all the national park has been mentioned over here. Please see it then. It can be asked for 1 mark, just like where is Manas Tiger Reserve is situated in India. And the option will be there, so in that the right option you have to choose, that's Assam. Next, conservation projects are now focusing on biodiversity rather than on a few of its components. There is now a more intensive search for their different conservation measures. Increasingly, even insects are beginning to find a place in conservation planning. In the notification under the Wildlife Act of 1980s and 1986, several hundred butterflies, moths, beetles, and 1 dragonfly has been added to the list of protected species. In 1991, the first time the plants were also added to the list, starting with the 6 species. So this slide is representing, dear children, about the protection steps the government has taken and in which year which thing was done. So please make a note of it. It is very, very important as an part and parcel of the examination. Next, moving further, types and distribution of forest and wildlife resource. So now we are going to discuss about the types and the distribution of forest. Even if we want to conserve our vast forest and wildlife resources, it is rather difficult to manage, control and regulate them. In India, much of its forest and wildlife resources are either owned or managed by the government through the forest department or the other government department. These can be classified under the following category. So now it's the time to discuss about the forest is going to be classified into three types here. In that we are going to talk and discuss about the reserve forest, protected forest and unclassed forest. Let's see. First, reserved forest. The forests are reserved. More than half of the total forest land has been declared reserve forest. Reserve forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of the forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Next, second one is the protected forest. Almost 1/3 of the total forest area is protected forest as declared by the forest department. These forest lands are protected from any further depletion. For the depletion, we are taking and we are protecting them. Next, unclassed forest. These are the other forest and the wasteland belonging to the both government as well as the private individual and the communities. They are called as the unclassed forest. Let's move toward the explanation part. Reserved and protected forests are also referred as the permanent forest estates maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other forest products and for protective reason. So it's clear they can use the forest product as well as they are protecting it. Moving further, Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under the permanent forest, constituting 75% of the total forest area. That means we are going to talk about Jammu and Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal and Maharashtra have large percentage of reserve forest of its total forest area, whereas Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha and Rajasthan have a bulk of under protected forest. So all the northeast states and the part of Gujarat have a high percentage of their forest as unclassed forest managed by the local communities. So this slide is talking about what percentage of the forest is having in which state. With the help of the political map of the India, you please place all the states and you can identify it. Next, moving further, this slide is talking about, can you find out the reason for the above mentioned problems? So here the photographs of Gharial, the bird death blamed on the dirty Yamuna. This is the newspaper cutting which is available in your textbook. I request you all, please go through it. Gharial on the brink. So please see it properly. And after that you have to answer. You can find out the reason of the above mentioned problem. You have to read that. After reading, you have to find out the solution for these problems. So dear cadet, another few photographs is also available in your textbook. Please go through it and after that respond it. Next, moving to the question answers on the basis of this topic and how to write the answer. Quickly we are going to summarize it. Point number 1. On this topic, types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. So the question may be asked, state the different types of forest and explain in detail. So at that time you have to explain about the reserve forest, protected forest and unclassed forest. it may be asked about that, what do you mean by the term unclassed forest? At that time you have to write the answer. These are the other forests and wastelands which are belonging to the both government as well as the private individual and communities. Okay. Next, the difference can be asked. Differentiate between the reserve forest and protected forest. Next, moving to have the next question on the basis of our studies, this Project Tiger. List out the 3 features of Project Tiger. Right? Few facts and figure can also be asked for 1 marks. Just in which year it was launched. Right? Just as stated about the Manas Tiger Reserve, this point. In that way, it can be asked of Sarishka, right? Sundarban, Corbett National Park, which already I had given in the previous year also in MapWork. Next, moving to discuss the new point in relation of the question answers. Conservation of forest and wildlife in India. What are the different steps has been taken by the government of India to conserve the forest and wildlife in India? This question can also be asked in the examination. At that time you have to write about why there is a great need to conserve and preserve the forest and wildlife. So in that you have to talk and discuss about whatever the point they are giving in. Next, this slide is talking about the 3 types of crocodile: freshwater crocodile, saltwater crocodile, and the ghadial. So it can be asked for 1 marks in the examination. Already I told you, you have to make a tabular format. In that you have to write about all the species and name of that. Just like that, you can make it on the different species which are included in endanger and the different step taken by the government. The Project Tiger is very important. Please read it properly. If you are facing any doubt and difficulty, please let me know that. These all wildlife sanctuaries and the national park with the help of the India's outline political map. You can access to the 9th standard textbook also, and in that you can see these all the national park, because in 10th standard there is no map work is given in the textbook. So I request you refer the 9th standard geography textbook for your better understanding. So in that you can clearly understand about that which state is having which national park. Yes, next point. The conservation project, what they are focusing on and how to cope up with them. In which year it was stating about the conservation plan for about what, it can also be asked for 1 marks. This type of forest already I discussed with you. Please go ahead. Next, this slide already I told you, this is your homework. You please read this and go through it and find out the reason for the above mentioned problem. Now next point is about that. Number of the cadet you are calling me and asking me through the WhatsApp, okay, sir, how to write the notes and all. So dear cadet, already I stated about you from the slide presentation and from your own, read the textbook and prepare the notes. For the chapter number 2, the forest and wildlife resources and the water resources, you are not allowed to make the notes because I am going to assess these 2 chapters in the internal examination. Not for the annual examination, they are going to be part and parcel. Only map work is going to be asked from the chapter number water resources. Lastly, I want to thank to each and everyone for watching this video. Till then, be safe and secure at your home. Jai Hind to one and all.